Thank you for tuning in to episode 7 of the Margins of Victory podcast. I'm Craig Pintens, the athletic director at LMU. Today we were joined by Graham Rossini, the director of athletics at Arizona State University. Graham touched on his incredible career, gives some great career advice in his path to the athletic director chair at Arizona State, talks about the incredible alignment they have with the institution and with their president, Dr. Michael Crow, and what that has really truly meant for Arizona State. Talks about Coach Dillingham, retaining him, and then also touches on attracting fans and supporters in such a large metropolitan area. Tune in. I think you'll enjoy this one. Welcome to episode 7 of the Margins of Victory podcast. I'm your host, Craig Pintens. Today we are joined by the athletic director at Arizona State University, Graham Rossini. Graham, welcome to episode 7. It's been a while since we've done this, so I'm glad the mic still works here.
There you go. Thanks, Craig. Excited to join you. And yeah, it's always nice in this Zoom era when technology works the way we need it to.
Exactly. And it looks like you have a great backdrop right there. Looks like your office might be right at, is that Sun Devil Stadium I see in the background?
Yeah, we now Mountain America Stadium.
Sorry, you got to get that corporate sponsor in there. This is a revenue podcast.
There you go, sign of the times. So we were early adopters of naming rights here, and Mountain America Credit Union's been an incredible partner. And yeah, not a bad vantage point every day, looking over incredible football stadium and a nice view of the Phoenix metropolitan area. A lot of growth and development out here, and so great time to be a Sun Devil. Happy to share some stories today.
All right, well, let's start there because you go to Arizona State as an undergrad. I know you tried to play baseball, or you're going to play baseball, and you're a catcher growing up. So we're going to start with probably the most difficult question of the day.
Okay.
You've got 3 catchers that wore number 7, kind of contemporaries. We're going to leave out Mickey Mantle. So you've got to start, bench, and trade Pudge Rodriguez, Craig Biggio, and Joe Mauer. And Biggio, he started as a catcher, but he moved obviously to second base. So
yeah, I mean, Hall of Famers galore. So Biggio, Mauer, who was the third?
Pudge Rodriguez.
Ooh, wow. Pudge was a great Wilson guy. Wilson was a early adopter of glove deals here at ASU. So that's a tough one. I would go Joe Mauer. I'm starting because just same age, got a chance to watch him grow up, and his decision to not go to Florida State and play quarterback and go to the Twins and excel in baseball. And I got to cross paths with him when I was in Major League Baseball. So would start him. Wow. I'm going to trade Pudge because his trade value would have been at an all-time high throughout. You're going to rebuild some roster there. And I'm benching Craig Biggio because, like you said, he's got options. He can go play different positions. He could probably do anything he wants to do and excel at it. So I'm going to go with that.
Well, Graham, I think your logic is really sound there because you probably could get a ton for Pudge in a trade. And Joe Mauer obviously just was a stalwart. What an incredible athlete. Great basketball player in high school as well.
Yeah. So. Pudge, probably the best arm I've ever seen live. I mean, that was an absolute cannon coming out of his right arm, throwing the ball down. And I used to always enjoy just after warm-up pitches, watch a catcher throw it on a second and just the fluidity of it. There was a guy named Ben Davis when I was in high school. We had a San Diego Padres AA affiliate in Mobile, Alabama, where I'm from. And Ben Davis was a top prospect in the Padres organization coming up, was a first-round pick out of Malvern Prep in Pennsylvania. And I used to just be in awe watching him throw the baseball. And, maybe he's the reason I wanted to catch. I'm 6'5". I probably should have been on the pitcher's mound, not behind the dish. But I liked calling the game. I liked having the full vantage point of the field in front of it, kind of the unofficial play caller at that time in the sport. But thanks I haven't thought about these things in a while. So nice to get back into some previous memories.
No, that's a good thing. And you might be the only Power 4 AD that started their career kind of as a director of baseball operations, what did you learn maybe in that experience that now helps you today?
Yeah, that's a great question. 2 things that come to mind. One is I just wasn't a very good player. And so I, came out here with the dream to do so, got very close to, touching some playing time, but didn't. And after my sophomore year of summer ball, Pat Murphy, who is my head coach and is still a great friend doing big things with the Brewers, which I know you appreciate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So he was like, "Hey, I know you want to play. I'll call anybody in America to help you find a spot. We're at a point in our program where we need to win. We can't take on developmental projects. You've had a runway to earn some time, and it's not going to happen. But he's like, if you want to help this program, I think you can make a meaningful contribution off the field." And so at 19 or 20, that's a tough pride pill to swallow. Your identity, your whole life is tied to playing, and that was the dream of cracking a lineup and getting a chance to suit up and play for ASU, which had been a dream of mine since I was 11 or 12 years old. And the moment I knew college baseball was a thing, I had my sights set on ASU. There was a great Atlanta Braves ASU pipeline at that point. And so even though I grew up in the Southeast, I always wanted to come to ASU at a very young age. And so anyhow, lived a version of that dream, and then came to grips with, hey, I'm probably not going to play beyond college anyway. I'm in this incredible environment here in the Phoenix area. The Diamondbacks were now in Major League Baseball. All 4 pro leagues were in the marketplace. College sports is big time. And I just felt like, hey, he's offered me a chance to contribute to the program. I've wanted to be a part of Sun Devil baseball since I can remember. And I'm glad I stuck with that because it allowed me to really get a head start at 20 years old on life after playing and really accelerate my preparation for the real world, so much to the point where my senior year, he approached me and said, hey, if you can take night classes and online classes so you can be in the office during the day, I want to give you a full-time job and let you kind of finish your degree and have a seamless transition as a full-time member of the staff. And so I did that my senior year. And I remember coming back from a road trip at Stanford, and we were at the San Francisco airport when the rest of my graduating class was here in Tempe graduating. And I was with the team on the road, and he came up, he said, hey, congrats, you're a graduate, you're full-time on Monday, and let's begin this journey. So really an unconventional way to begin a professional career. But at that time, we were a top 10 program and a lot of visibility on Sun Devil baseball, and the way that he designed it. And I'm still so forever grateful to this day. He said, hey, I want to coach. I want my best time and energy to be on the field with our players. I trust you to do everything else. And so right out of school, getting to run the day-to-day operations of a top 10 program and interface with the rest of the athletic department, our donors, our alums, agents, equipment companies, people throughout all levels of Major League Baseball and the NCAA. It was the gift I didn't appreciate at the time, but now I realize that it was an incredible way to break into the industry and my career, just because I got exposed to all aspects of it. And that lived experience at a young age, kind of figuring it out and interacting with people that were 15, 20 years senior, much more established and much more significant leadership positions. I think it allowed me to understand how business gets done. And as I'm going through it, trying to figure out, I'm just gaining from that learned experience along the way. And, maybe an unconventional pathway, but it's led to some pretty special moments in my career. And a lot of ways has prepared me for the job I'm in now.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think very often when any of us speak to somebody that is new in the business or just trying to break in, you really took advantage of that situation because, as you just described it, you talked about all the people that you interface. And I think if you're just confined to the role you're in of being the director of baseball operations, that's all you're going to be. Right. But if you can use that to your advantage, career-wise, to really interface with all those people and look at the opportunity you have, you can make the most of it. From there, you go on, you leave Arizona State to go to the Diamondbacks.
Yep.
What did you learn at the Diamondbacks that really now you can transition into college sports? Because as we know, everybody's talking now about the fact that pro sports, college sports are kind of somewhat one and the same now. How did that mindset and what you learned there, are you able to apply at Arizona State?
So I would actually bring it back to a moment before I even started with the Diamondbacks that was pretty instrumental in my journey. I got a chance to know Scott Boras while I was in our baseball program. He had represented a few of our players after they were drafted, and was actually at one of our camps with his son Shane, and just was around for the weekend and got a chance to interact with him a little bit more than I would have in my job. And at the end of the weekend, he handed me a business card. He said, hey, if I can ever be a resource for you, I'd love to help you out. I've seen how you conduct yourself. I like how you go about your business. I see you as somebody who value adds to an environment, and I want to be a resource for you. And so you say, thank you, Scott Boras. I'll keep that in mind. And then we got back from the College World Series in 2007. And I knew at that point, 27, I think at that point was ready for my next career jump. Had been to Omaha a handful of times with ASU, loved my role, loved my contribution to the program, but Major League Baseball was always the goal for me as I started that career. And so worked up the nerve to have that conversation with Coach Murphy, and he was great. He's like, hey, I knew this day would come. I'll help you however I can. And that led to 3 very unique opportunities. I had a chance to interview with the Angels in a scouting and player development role. Eddie Bain was their scouting director at the time, was a great ASU alum, and was looking to take care of the alma mater. The Diamondbacks presented me with an opportunity. Derek Hall, also an ASU alum, had come over from the Los Angeles Dodgers and was now running the team. And then I'd reached out to Scott Boras, actually asking him to be a reference on a resume, and that led to a long series of conversations about joining his company as an agent. And I think what really struck me in that moment of just, you never know who's watching. You never know who's observing how you go about your business. And, a lot of times now in the seat, I'm sure you've had this question as well, where people ask you, what's the best way to advance in your career? And my advice is really simple. It's just be a good shortstop. Be great at the job that you're there to do. Be the best you can at the job that you're hired to and the moment that you're in it. Because at some point, talent gets noticed. Somebody's there to scout the visiting team, center fielder or point guard or wide receiver. And they're also going to notice when the other team or the other positions are talented. And so your work can speak for yourself. And that's really been helpful in my journey. And so ultimately had 3 really exciting options. Felt like the Diamondbacks was the best fit for me on the business side, still touching a lot of baseball operations in the role that I had. But, a lot happened over those 13 years. Got a chance to build a spring training facility here in Scottsdale that's still one of the best in Major League Baseball. Got a chance to work on our Dominican Republic Academy, which was complicated, not only doing a capital project, but doing a capital project in another country and all the nuances that would come with that. Got a chance to host the All-Star Game, put in our bid to earn that event along with the World Baseball Classic. And so these big jewel events, these big marquee economic drivers, brand builders, et cetera. We played in Australia. We played in Mexico. We really focused on our game day and our fan experience. And so I was the everything else. We had great ticketing, corporate partnership, marketing leadership in our front office. I was maybe the connector of all those different units in the job that I had. And the beauty of that experience was I was able to communicate with all levels of the organization, from the grounds crew when we put in a new synthetic turf field to our ownership and understanding the information that they needed to make effective decisions. And so, really a blessing in disguise that, again, I didn't know it as I was going through it, but it was all leading me to preparation for the job that I've got now as an athletic director. And I never thought I'd leave Major League Baseball. That was not in the cards necessarily, but as many people experienced during the pandemic, you had a chance to really hit the pause button, reflect on where you're at and understand what could be there. And then through happenstance, a good friend of mine, Tim Corbin, the head baseball coach at Vanderbilt, had just reached out randomly and said, hey, we have a new AD at Vanderbilt, Candace. She's building out our leadership team. She's been here, but she's looking for different pockets. I think you'd be a great fit if you're ever thinking about college athletics. I think this would be a perfect opportunity for you. My parents and brother in Nashville, it was the SEC. It seemed like a really good entry point. I just talked to Jimmy Phillips maybe a week before that conversation when he was still at Northwestern. He's a dear friend and was a member of our basketball coaching staff when I was here as a student. And so it's been fun to stay connected to Jimmy over the years. And really these 2 conversations led me to be open-minded about something in college sports, and ended up pursuing the role at Vanderbilt. Wasn't meant to be. She made another hire that worked out great. But as I was preparing for that interview and that process, got reconnected to Ray Anderson as I was doing my due diligence. And Ray said, hey, that's really interesting. If you're thinking about college sports, I think this is a really good time for you to come back home and come back to the alma mater. And so, the world works in funny ways. Timing is everything, as you know, as well. And so, fast forward, it's worked out great. And I'm forever grateful for, the early foundation I learned through our baseball program, all the lessons learned in Major League Baseball at a very high level in professional sports, and then applying all those experiences into the work that we're all navigating today.
No, I think that's a fascinating career journey and some really great nuggets in there in terms of how you can develop your own career. Let me ask you a question off that, and then we'll get into revenue topics, which is really what we're here for. But you bring up something really interesting. You obviously connected with a lot of different people. Do you believe in kind of the philosophy of, imagine your career as like a highway or your job as a highway and you're in your lane? How do you kind of veer out of your lane a little bit to connect with a lot of different people? Because otherwise you're just going to remain in that lane for the entire drive. How do you do that? Does that come naturally to you, or is that something you're very intentional about?
Maybe a little bit of both. I've always been pretty restless and pretty curious. I don't like idle time. I always like to tinker or pursue knowledge or seek out conversations and insights. And another thing I like to really encourage young people as I have those conversations is say like, hey, find 10 people that you admire or you're interested in their journey and ask them the same question and find out what's consistent over those 10 conversations and what's very different. And all those insights really start to inform your own journey and your own path. And so I think I've just really tried to take the mindset of being value add in the jobs that I've been in and curious about how it all works together. And through that curiosity and maybe interest in growing beyond the role I'm in, just gaining knowledge base, gaining relationships, earning trust and respect along the way. And, I don't mean to always go back to baseball analogies, but it's been a big part of my life. And, Bob Welch, the world champion and Cy Young winner, was on our coaching staff. And, he's a guy that was just fascinating to be with every single day. And at one point we were at his condo in the Bay Area and he had the Cy Young trophy holding the door open, if you can believe it. It's a heavy spring door that keeps a garage from a mudroom or a kitchen. And I'm like, Welchie, I got to know, you got the Cy Young trophy holding your door open. Like, what are you proud of? It's the most famous trophy for a pitcher in the world you're using as a doorstop. And he's like, oh, that's just a trophy. It does a good job. It's heavy. He's like, I always liked it when guys told me I was their favorite teammate. I just took great pride in being somebody that others could lean on, somebody that would be there when times were good, but more importantly, when times were tough. And that stuck with me 24 years later, that conversation, and really try to adopt and apply that mindset of being a good teammate. And I think when you're a good teammate, you build trust and respect, you build rapport, you build connections and relationships, and all that serves to further, in my opinion.
No, I think you're spot on. But I will say this, Graham, when you win the college football playoff, you can't use it as a doorstop. You have to put that in a very place of prominence somewhere there.
I'll sign up for that. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Well, let's get into Arizona State. So you come back to Arizona State. Shortly thereafter, you come back. There's a search and you become the athletic director. And you happen to take over at a time where there's all this change in college athletics with the advent of NIL, the House settlement, transfer portal. Take your pick of whatever the topic du jour is of the day. But how have you viewed that through your lens, being away from it a little bit and then stepping into kind of this new world? What did you bring from your previous experiences that have really helped you in kind of this changing landscape?
Yeah, I go back to my career path to this point was preparing me for this job in ways that I didn't know as it was happening. And ultimately, the disruption in our industry is ultimately what's helped me the most out the gate as an AD, because the conventional playbook, so to speak, on how ADs historically would operate, that's out the door. That. Everybody that's watching that knows that. And the ability to have a deep understanding of A, your institution, and B, your marketplace, in my opinion, are the two most important attributes of a modern athletic director, because you've got to really understand what's important to your university, how you fit into that ecosystem, how you can leverage the full scale of the enterprise. And we're lucky at a place like ASU under Dr. Crow over the last 20 plus years is this university is a rocket ship, but so is our marketplace. And we're at a point in our evolution where we're so dynamic beyond the university, but the entire enterprise of ASU with our presence here in the Valley, where we have a lot to lean into. And being an auxiliary enterprise in the way that most athletic departments are structured, we've now been able to integrate throughout the university. And that's really allowed us to say the answer to anything that we need to live or to solve lives at ASU. We within athletics need to be smart enough to know where to point the periscope. And so not having the traditional athletic director pathway on the way up or experience has proven not to be a limiting factor, because I have where I may not have that experience, I've got a deep understanding of my institution and a deep understanding of the place that I've benefited from. And I'm very motivated and privileged to have the responsibility of letting others that come through our system get a version of the experience that I had. And again, like, I didn't have playing time. I didn't make a meaningful contribution on the field. And this is still the outcome that could exist. And so imagine what high performers in our space can go and unlock through their ASU experience. And so, a lot of it was good timing. I was just fortunate to maybe come back at a time where I got a head start on really understanding A, what was happening within the college sports environment, and B, gaining a deeper understanding of the institution in the 2.5 or 3 years before I got the chance to take the job. So again, a very unconventional pathway to the seat, but in many ways, it feels right just based on my lived experience.
No, that makes complete sense. And obviously you've done some great things at Arizona State, particularly with facilities. And obviously when you were with the Diamondbacks, you touched on a few of those things that you were doing. How important are facilities and the potential revenue that they can generate? And I guess, how do you balance those two in terms of, hey, look, this facility is really decrepit, but as we look at it, what are some ways that we can potentially generate more revenue in addition to creating a great venue for our student athletes and our fans?
Yeah, I mean, we still value what high performing facilities can mean for outcomes, both in terms of the performance outcomes, but as you mentioned, also the revenue opportunities, and those are prioritized and important now more than ever. And a big part of my time at the Diamondbacks was capital projects and getting a chance to do that within Chase Field, within new builds that I was a part of, and really understanding how to think through the programming phase and ultimately what you want to prioritize when you're going through a building. And we're doing that right now, where Desert Financial Arena is a 50-year-old on-campus venue that is ready for a makeover, ready for some newness. And we've got resources that are finite, and we're very disciplined with how we're going to use them. And so the two things that we've talked to the project team are, there's two goals. Ultimately, we're in the memory business as an entertainment entity, as a sports entity, however you want to refer to it. And we've got people from all walks of life that are choosing to enjoy their spare time and their free time and spare money with ASU. And so we've got to be cognizant of the ways that we can drive memories for the people that are supporting us. At the same time, we want to create an energy that allows our home teams to have success while they're competing. And you've got 5 teams that compete in this particular building. We need to design around those attributes: memories, which ultimately lead to the revenue, repeat business, corporate partner inventory, a home court advantage that puts it on television more often, which makes the property more valuable from a visibility and media exposure standpoint, and then is a conduit to teams having high performing, successful outcomes. And obviously, as we know, the more you win, the more that people want to come out. But it's balancing those two objectives, because I think in this environment, it's foolish to only rely on winning as the way to advance your unit as a department. And so, again, my background has been big on fan experience, attention to detail. We talk a lot in our department of our responsibility is to obsess over the people who obsess over us. If somebody's picking a night with the Sun Devils in any of our sports and any of our moments, we bear the responsibility of over delivering and providing a great game day. And I do think when we get that right, that helps you buffer the performance highs and lows that are inevitable in any walk of sports or humanity. You can't guarantee winning outcomes every single time. There's going to be highs and lows. And our football coach does a great job of saying, like, we want the lows to be lower as we evolve, but we still want a great fan experience. We want a great game day. We want to give any number of reasons for fans to choose coming and buying a ticket to spend with ASU, independent of how well the team's playing or not.
Well, and you've obviously made tremendous strides from a football attendance standpoint, over 7,500 new season tickets, increased student attendance. How do you look at that when you were a fan? So you're at the Diamondbacks. I'm sure you went to some Arizona State football games, and you're probably thinking, oh, I wish we would do this. Now you work for ASU, and then you become the athletic director. Now you can actually implement some of those things. What were kind of the things that you, as a fan, as you experienced that your 13 years kind of away and coming back, what were some automatic, like right away when you got there, hey, we need to look at this? Because I think that's instructive for a lot of people that take on new roles in this space.
Yeah, I think it's overall the polish and the presentation of our brand. And that is the in-game show, that is the wayfinding, that is the staffing dynamic, that's the food and beverage, it's the merchandise, it's all those elements that tie into a successful game day. And there were some disconnects on that front. And so we really tried to look at ways to bring all of the business or external units together and make sure that there's a concerted plan on the in-game promotions, what the team's going to be wearing, how do we make that available to fans at retail, how do we introduce that mindset of value add and over delivering for all of our fan bases, and understanding that not all of our fans are the same. You don't have only avid fans or only student fans. You've got all these different demographics that are coming in. part of it was really understanding who are our fans. And we're still in that process of developing personas or segmentation on our fans, so we can really start to tailor our marketing, our messaging, our price points, our amenities to young professionals who may be different than a business clientele, who may be different to a family, who may be different to a casual fan, who may be different to the hardcore avid fan, listening to the radio broadcast, keeping score where that's appropriate. They all love the Sun Devils, but they've got different expectations on what a game day would be. And that was the first order of business, of really looking at the entire ecosystem and saying, how do we present our brand in the strongest way possible, but be pliable and adaptable enough to know that people are looking for different parts of their game day. And we need that feedback to really drive decisions. And so the polish, the data, the way that we made decisions, the level of priority or order of magnitude were all things that we try to attack out the gate. And the fun part is, I don't think that's work that's ever going to be done. We're constantly going to be refining, tweaking, adjusting, and you make incremental gains one season. Well, those same improvements may need to evolve into years 2 and 3. And so really just challenging ourselves to think bigger. I'm probably the worst person to go to another sporting event with, or go to a restaurant, or go to a hotel, because you're looking at the lobby signage, you're looking at the menu jacket, you're looking at the logo presentation, you're looking at the staff uniforms, and all those are really important inputs that really you come away and say, hey, we could do that in our suites, or we could do that in our clubs, or we could do that on our ushers or our parking lot, and just come away from day-to-day life with ideas that we want to implement back in the work that we're doing here at ASU.
No, I don't think that anybody that has kind of worked in that space in terms of providing a better fan experience is anybody that you want to travel with or be anywhere with, because you're pointing out everything. And heaven forbid if you go to another game and you're sitting with other people and you're just looking at everything else. Well, I wonder why they're doing that. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That's not helping anything. But absolutely. Yeah, we're probably not the best people to go to games with. Obviously, love Coach Dillingham, and he has been so. He's just authentic, and love his sound bites. Whether they're sometimes, I'm sure it causes a little bit of heartache at times, but he's very authentic and has done a tremendous job. How important is it to retain somebody like Coach Dillingham just for everything that you're trying to get done there?
Paramount. And with him specifically, he's a generational fixture with our fan base already. 3 years in, he's taken on legendary status. And I was lucky in both times at ASU to learn from a colleague who's now retired. Don Bakke, one of our senior associate athletic directors, is in our Hall of Fame, so that can tell you what he's meant to this department and meant to this university. And before I came back to ASU most recently, we were getting together for lunch, and he said, hey, there's a lot of objectives in the job, but hear me out, and remember, the most important decision you're ever going to make will be the coaches that you hire, because the coaches that you hire are the ones that are really out front promoting the sport, and more importantly, they're the ones leading the young athletes that are in the space. And so, you want to be on the winning side of that ledger with the coaches that come into your space. And so, that advice and that philosophy has never left my mindset. And again, we're living in this chaotic time in college sports. We try to really simplify the purpose of what we do at ASU within Sun Devil Athletics is talent development. We're a talent development organization. 600 athletes from 44 countries picked us for whatever reason. We've got a responsibility to make sure that there is growth and development in their journey while they're with us. Well, the best way to develop talent is to hire and retain amazing coaches that can go lead them on a day-to-day basis. And so it's the responsibility of the rest of us in administration and throughout the department to provide the tools and the resources to allow our coaches to lead these athletes at the highest possible level. And so nobody does that better than Kenny. I mean, he is a workhorse. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He is passionate about his alma mater and the place that he's at and he's grown up around. But the best part is he's consistent. I mean, the version you see in sound bites is the version that's in the office every day. And so, he's everything that you'd want him to be. He's the leader of men that this program needs. He's the right fixture for our fan base at this particular time, where we've just really generated incredible excitement and enthusiasm in all fashion. And so I'm not a dummy. When you've got a good thing here, and not having to hire football coaches would be, I think, the best case scenario in the time that I'm in the seat, is because we've got a special one, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that he's resourced at the highest level to lead this program and continue to take it new heights. And just lucky to go to work with him every day. Want to be a great teammate for him. And we're focused on that every day.
Well, let's talk about resources, because obviously the health settlement comes down, and the 20.5, and it'll go up each year. How do you balance out the fact that obviously football is the revenue driver? Majority of money in most schools is going to be going to football and men's basketball. Yet you have 26 sports, very successful. You won the Commissioner's Cup for your first year in the Big 12. So how do you try to balance that out and make sure that your programs are resourced? And do you believe that you have to now prioritize your different sports and realize that what you were able to do or had a leadership position in one sport, you might not have that anymore because of this new world that we live in?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, football drives all of our momentum departmentally. It's too powerful in the environment. It's too powerful in our country that we've got to put all of our best energy and ideas behind football, because everybody's benefiting from that momentum. And one of the strategies we've really tried to implement, and it's off to a great start, is bringing our department together as a unit. In many ways, 26 sports, the most in the Big 12. It's a lot of mouths to feed. That's a lot of demands on time and energy and bandwidth and resources. But we've really tried to design around operating like a department and not 26 independent contractors that may happen to wear the same uniform. And so that's allowed us to really understand that we can find economies of scale. We can leverage our departmental spends across all of our programs and not be so fixated on every sport, every sports administrator, every sports P&L, and really start to share expenses in the ways that make sense to across the department, but more importantly, cross promote year round. And we've done that with obviously football and the magnifying glass that is. Television ratings are up 40% in the last 2 years. Attendance is up 35% over the last 2 years. It's a lot of people that are coming to learn about ASU, not only athletics, but the entire university through the momentum that's been created in football. And so cross promoting your sports, understanding that, hey, in a big football game, we're promoting the launch of Molly Miller in women's basketball, or Greg Powers in our hockey program. That's the top 20 program, and making sure that people understand it's not just 6 or 7 home games during football season that they can plug into and connect. It's this entire year-round ecosystem of incredible moments. And again, that mindset of we're in the memory business and introducing people to all that we have to offer here. That's really allowed us to sophisticate the business of our department as well, because we're not selling sport by sport partnerships or packages. We're looking at the entire year. And in a market like ours, where there's so much attention on the entertainment space, we've got every sport, every big event, every cultural moment coming through the Valley. You're 2 hours from Mexico, you're 2 hours from Flagstaff. People have a lot of options here in the Valley, and we want to be compelling in that we're year round. And so our corporate partners look at us and say, hey, that's August to June, 250 live events, millions of people supporting the Sun Devils. There's a value that we can assign to that because we're driving value for our partners in return, or we're giving our fan base a variety of products to navigate over the course of a calendar year. But it all plays off the momentum that you can create in football. And so, yes, there's an order of magnitude. It doesn't mean that sports are more important than others, but we've got to put attention around 7 here that we really look at as commercially viable, and a chance to really connect the dots on our mainstream largest corporate partners, the way that we can drive ticket revenue, the way that we can have philanthropy feeding these big moments and these facility needs or coaching endowments in the ways that are relevant today. And so it's designed with football front and center, but everything plays off that momentum in the ways that we're able to navigate that.
Yeah. And one thing you touched on there, I think that is worth coming back to a little bit. You're in a major metropolitan area with a lot of options. Kind of two things. How do you cut through that clutter of all these different entertainment options that exist there? And then how do you attract the person who's not affiliated with ASU to really make it work and tap into that potential? Because here you are in this large metropolitan area. Not all of your alums live there.
Right.
So how do you kind of cut through the clutter? And then the second part of that is, how do you find those people and get them out to your venues?
I think it's our best opportunity, and it's something that really excites us because we're in such a dynamic market that's still growing. There's 1 million people new to the Valley in the last decade. Maricopa County is still one of the largest growing counties in America. And so that's a chance for us to be first. That's a chance when people come to the marketplace for us to be the first thing that they interact with, because we're probably competing in something when they come to the Valley. And, we may have 7 sports that we're commercially driving, but all 26 are really important capture tools for us. And we've got, beach volleyball has a scrimmage going on this afternoon. There's people that may be coming from Southern California that are just diehard beach volleyball fans. And that's our way to get them on campus. That's our way to get them introduced to ASU. And then when they're at beach volleyball, they're seeing the softball lights next door in a Mary Littlewood tournament going on. And they might peek around the corner and say, hey, we should come back and watch softball. And then when you're at softball, you're meeting our basketball coaches as we're introducing them. And then you're like, hey, we like basketball. Let's think about season tickets. And so just this incredible opportunity that we have, because wherever you're from and whatever you're into, we have it. Lacrosse, triathlon, ice hockey, college football, every sport under the sun almost. And it's just a really important way for us to build affinity towards ASU through athletics. And if all of our sports are effective in one way or the other of getting people connected to ASU, they're going to learn more. They're going to understand how their family can plug into the university. They're going to understand the opportunities in the marketplace that are connected to ASU or influenced by ASU. And that's of enormous value. And then I think the second part is understanding that our value and our sell is unique. It's not better or worse. It's just different than pro sports. And there's still a purity that exists in college athletics today. Despite the evolution and the way that the business is trending, there's still access that's harder to get or easier to get in college sports. There's still an affordability or a value proposition that we look at, particularly with soccer and softball and baseball and a lot of our sports that are always going to be less price versus the pro options there. And the fact that we're investing in young people. Ultimately, we're trying to run a business unit, but we're still focused on talent development. And any dollar that we make, we're immediately reinvesting it into human capital and the output of our 600 athletes. And so I do believe that people still resonate with the fact that college athletics is intended to prepare people for the real world. They're earning an education. They're learning how to navigate as young adults. And that's still a worthwhile investment. And so when people are picking us to be what entertains them or their clients or their family, the output is still something that's meaningful and purposeful to get behind. And so all those factors work in our advantage. And I do think we're in a moment in college sports where being in a metropolitan area, being at a Research One university, being in a powerful athletic department has just a unique set of attributes around it, because access to population, access to corporations, access to decision makers, access to new opportunities is all around us. And we'd be foolish not to take advantage.
That it makes complete sense. And it really touches into having a president who has been very vocal and out there really about advancing the university's mission through athletics. How does the support from President Crow really help kind of the ambitions of your athletic department? And maybe is there an example of something that you really want to do and President Crow's like, yeah, let's go do that?
Yeah, he's been an incredible teammate, and I wish he would get more credit locally for the investment that he's made in athletics and the way that he is allocating resources and prioritizing us as a critical part of the university. And again, our charge is to build affinity for all of ASU, not just for sports fans, not just for sports programs, but shine the brightest light you can on ASU through the athletics platform. And that's been one of the best outcomes of being in the Big 12 is this television distribution, Fox and ESPN, now TNT's in the mix. Now Paramount is involved as a partner, and there's just incredible distribution through the Big 12. And that just puts a lot more attention and awareness on what's happening, not only within our programs like football and others, but throughout the entire university, because distribution matters, as we all know. And then this national footprint where you've got 4 schools in Texas, you've got schools in Florida, a presence on the East Coast. We're playing football in London next year because the conference has been supportive of those efforts. And that just allows us to really shine a bright light on ASU. And Dr. Crow values that awareness that, hey, we're launching a medical school this fall, or we've got biodesign, or we've got world-class colleges of engineering and colleges of business that we can use to plug into our space and be a part of our outcomes using students and faculty and staff, but really creating awareness of the rocket ship that is ASU. And so he's been an incredible teammate. He's been very pliable and adaptable to this new environment that we're all navigating. And the best example would be we added exactly 202 scholarships after the House settlement. And so right now, 84% of our athletes are on some form of athletic aid, and that maybe rivals one or two others in the entire nation. And so, that comes at an expense. And he said, I'm going to fund incremental scholarships because I believe that's an opportunity to certainly take football from 85 to 105. That's going to be meaningful in the momentum of what Coach Dillingham is building alongside rev share and alongside that bucket. But at the same time, let's allow it to be a chance for all of our programs to get ahead and really solidify that we are invested in the student athlete, and the student still comes before the athlete, because we do want them to focus on degree completion and educational attainment and using the network of ASU through their time here. And so when you have a president that's saying, I'm not looking to mix and match. I don't want you to take away from Olympic sports so you can put it into football and baseball. I want to make that available for everybody. That's an incredible gesture by a leader who understands that there's an opportunity for us to create separation amongst our competition, but more importantly, resource these athletes to go compete and be present and represent us and create incredible exposure and awareness for our university, and remove some of the limiting factors by letting them become a scholarship athlete while they're Sun Devil. And so there's many more examples, but that's always a fun one to talk about when a lot of schools were faced with that very tough decision of pulling scholarships back or reallocating, or in even some instances cutting sports. We've been able to protect sports and hopefully in many ways resource and advance all of our programs to continue to grow and succeed.
Yeah, no, that it is a tremendous example of alignment and why it's so important to be aligned in trying to advance it. Because look, if athletics is done right, it is the best marketing you could possibly do for an institution. Because, last I checked, they're not broadcasting too many chemistry lectures or other things that might be really, really good at your school, but they don't get the same platform that athletics is going to get. Kind of with the move to the Big 12, have you seen institutionally any uptick in applications kind of throughout the country as you change your footprint geographically in a new conference, or is it too early to kind of tell that?
Well, we're lucky because we're large already. And so we're not maybe as focused on enrollment or applications as much as we're focused on awareness and attention. And so I think that's where we've really seen the greatest benefit of the Big 12 so far, is just, when your ratings go up massive because of a Big 12 championship and a college football playoff run, and that continues to grow into year two, as I mentioned earlier, just creates incredible awareness and exposure for the university. And so, we're less driven by maybe enrollment or admissions. We're much more driven by just driving affinity for the university and just creating awareness and a brand cachet and an understanding of our university and our charter, and that we want to break down walls and we want to create access and we want to be attainable, high quality education for people in all walks of life. That's a really important message for us to get out there at this particular moment. And so, in many ways, again, timing is what it is. And we were all passionate protectors of the Pac-12. That was a tremendous fit for us at an institutional level. But if that wasn't going to exist, the Big 12 has been absolutely the best fit for us as that transition was happening. And so, Commissioner Yormark is a dynamic leader. He thinks big. He creates incredible options for the member institutions to have and consider. He's building the brand of the conference, which we all benefit from at the same time as we're, all competing for resources and eyeballs and attention and time slots. And we've got arguably the best person for the job and driving that on behalf of the Big 12 membership, and just creating incredible exposure at each of the 16 institutions, I'd be willing to say, are reaping the same benefit of that effort.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I think Commissioner Yormark has done a tremendous job, and I can't wait to see that floor. That's going to be something. Graham, I appreciate it. This has been really insightful. I think you've provided some great tips, both career-wise and even just how you view very strategically how to attract more people to ASU. But before we go, I've asked this question now, I think, to every guest. Who is your all-time favorite athlete and why?
Oh, man. Well, bringing it back to baseball, I was a huge Dale Murphy fan as a kid, number 3 outfielder. And, just growing up as a Braves fan of the Southeast, that was the guy. MVP, Gold Glover, All-Star, tremendous human being. And then come to find out he had committed to ASU. And so I loved him before I ever knew that.
Oh, wow.
I guess I was destined to love this university in ways that I didn't even know it at the time, as far as that goes. But Dale Murphy, have had a chance to meet him a few times, was very hesitant to meet him because I had him on such a pedestal that I didn't want to be let down. And I'm glad to say he's exceeded expectations. I met him at the ABCA convention when I was probably 23 or 24. And he had mentioned, he's like, hey, I committed to ASU. Did you know that? And I was familiar at that time. And he said, hey, let me get your info. I may have a follow-up question for you. And okay, absolutely. And then that Monday, I'm back in the office and I get a phone call from Dale Murphy asking me a question, and couldn't wait to call my dad and tell him. I said, you'll never believe who called me asking me a question. But yeah, Dale Murphy, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but that's always been my guy. And I'll start with the origin story of where I fell in love with sports in the first place.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense. And Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame. I think a lot of people just assume he is in the Hall of Fame, but he has the numbers, he has the credentials. Does he have 2 MVPs?
2 MVPs. He's got 398 home runs, which may be a limiting factor. But
part of it. Yeah.
Ironically, Josh Rawitsch is a dear friend of mine, president of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. He's coming on Monday, so I'm gonna lobby that. So thanks.
Okay, yeah, please do. Hey, if you need support, I'm there for you. I think
Dale Murphy, I'm lobbying for you.
I had the Rawlings Dale Murphy model glove.
Me too.
Growing up, and that thing was a gamer, man. That was a great glove.
Absolutely.
All right, Graham. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for all the things that you're doing for our industry. Thanks for Arizona State, and thank you for tuning in to episode 7 of Margins of Victory.
Thanks, Craig.